Welcome, travelers, champions, heroes, and villains, to the adventure. Pack opening? I don't know. We've got a bunch more packs, so I think it's about time we open up our 11 packs, 6 of which are Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and 5 of which are Innistrad. So we'll start off with the new Crimson Vow packs first. Played a little bit in our off time trying to tool out some decks, so we earned some coins, and that's why we're here. Looks like we've got nothing really new, except for maybe discard. The Alchemist's Gambit. 2 red and 1 colorless for a sorcery that also has blue in it. Take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. After the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. Exile Alchemist's Gambit. So, pretty much gives you an extra turn to win the game, but you can play the cleave cost, which is 1 red, 2 blue, and 4 colorless, to just take an extra turn with damage not being able to prevent it, but you won't lose the game at the end of the end step, so it could be good in some decks. Lots of decks like to take extra turns, so yeah, I'm not really big on that. Like, turn decks, they're really mana intensive, and I really don't have the wherewithal, but we also have, like, basic creatures, lots of stuff with blood. Dreadlight Monstrosity, I love that picture. 5/5 wards. Reckless Impulses. Lantern Bearers that flip over into enchantments that make things fly. Stitched Assistance. Nothing terribly new in these packs, but let's see if we get anything new in this one. Not so much. We did get a Bride's Gown, so that's fancy. White equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. It gets an additional +0/+2 and has first strike as long as an equipment named Groom's Finery is attached to a creature you control. Okay. So I assume they kind of buff each other. I'm sure there's like the Groom's Finery probably does +0/+2 and some ability. And then it gets +2/+0 if you have the Bride's Gown. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, I don't think I have the Groom's Finery. You get the Panic Bystander that eventually becomes a Cackling Culprit when, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, you transform him at your end step. Whenever he or another creature you control die, you gain a life. And he gains Death Touch till end of turn. And he really gets kind of crazy. Guessing the Panic Bystander is actually just luring people to their doom to cut off their hand. Cool. Rot-Tide Gargantua, a zombie kraken. It has the exploit, so you can sack a creature when it comes into play. If it exploits a creature, each opponent sacks a creature. Okay. It's kind of expensive, but it does have the zombie token, or zombie tag on it, so works with all your fancy zombie decks. Get the Wanderlight Spirit. Can only block flyers. Steel-clad Spirit. It's a 3/3 for 2, and it can attack when you cast enchantment. It doesn't even fly. Like, honestly, that's a bad card. That's a bad card. When Flourishing Hunter enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to the greatest toughness among other creatures you control. Keep in mind that says other creatures you control, so it won't give you life based on its toughness. Hookhand Mariner, we get the Werewolf. 4/4, or at night it becomes a 6/4. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, so you can't chump block it. See what our rare is. Olivia's Attendants. I assume Olivia is the bride in this set. Whenever Olivia's Attendants deals damage, create that many blood tokens. And that's just deals damage. It doesn't have to deal combat damage. So if you can make it do damage in other ways, such as fight mechanics or such, you'll get that many blood tokens as well. But it also doesn't have to deal it to the player. Normally when you do that, it's like you have to do this kind of combat damage to a player. Nope. Not these chicks. They are just all about making the blood. And they have the ability to deal 1 damage to any target too, so you can just crank out blood tokens all over, left, right, and center. That's actually pretty cool. Not sure how I feel about, like, the blood tokens. I feel if it was just tap to discard a card and sacrifice an artifact, blood would be amazing. But that one colorless actually kind of, like, I feel holds it back just a bit. I mean, I'm no expert, so take my advice with several grains of salt. Yeah, we got a free wild card. We got the Alluring Suitor. When you attack with exactly 2 creatures, transform Alluring Suitor. Keep in mind, that means it doesn't have to be him that's one of the creatures. Becomes a 3/3 Trampler. This creature transforms into Deadly Dancer. You add 2 red mana. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Deadly Dancer and another creature gets +1/+0 till end of turn. Okay, so it kind of does fire breathing with itself and somebody else. Radiant Grace. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has Vigilance. Vigilance is really good. I think a lot of people... I think people understand it's good, but it's a lot better than I think even some professionals believe it to be. Being able to have like a big body that goes in and is also available to block is fantastic. When enchanted creature dies, return Radiant Grace to the battlefield transformed under your control and attached to target opponent. Enchanted player. Enchanted creatures enchanted player controls enter the battlefield tapped. Okay. That's pretty outstanding for 1 mana. You get a little buff on your creature, and then when that creature eventually dies, all the opponent's creatures come into play tapped. It's kind of sweet. Disrupt a lot of combos. Get the Perish Blade Trainee. Dies, put its counters on target creature you control, so that means any +1/+1 counters are technically any counters. So if you add -1/-1s or something else as well. Not terrible. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 3 life. If it was instant speed, it would be good. Because you always need to cast that when they cast those horrible artifacts or enchantments. Sure Strike. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike till end of turn. Fun little combat tricks. You don't really see it very often in Red when people play those, but that can give you that edge. Persistent Specimen. Return Persistent Specimen from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It's not bad. Kind of reminds me of that skeleton that keeps coming back to your hand. This is better and worse in certain situations. Some people use those skeletons in like card ditching things, like, oh, you discard a card from your hand and you can just keep bringing it back to get more cards or such. This one just brings it back to the battlefield, so you don't have to cast it again. Meaning you can sacrifice it a lot. Then we have Hungry Ridge Wolf. As long as you control another wolf or werewolf, Hungry Ridge Wolf gets +1/+0 and has trample. So if you're playing a wolf or werewolf deck, I don't think people just play straight wolf, but maybe. 2 mana for a 3/2 trampler. Pretty solid. And we have Change of Fortune for our rare. That art actually looks pretty great. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded this turn. Okay. So if you're doing a bunch of like discardy stuff or just needing to redraw your hand, it's kind of like a self-Wheel of Fortune, except for you don't get the full 7. I like it. I like it. It's a good card. Get some free wild comments. Got a Fell Stinger. The 3/2 Death Touch and Scorpion. Zombie Scorpion, no less. Man, it's the size of a horse. When Fell Stinger exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. So if you want to sack a creature to draw 2 cards when it comes into play, pretty good for black. Lamholt Raconteur? I have no idea what that word means. Lamholt Ravager when it's nighttime. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Lamholt deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay, so that's pretty good for your burny stuff. And whenever you cast non-creature when it's a werewolf, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. I could see that being used in non-werewolfy decks, in all honesty. It's kind of expensive for just a straight burn deck, but I could see people doing it. Serpentine Ambush until end of turn. Target creature becomes a blue spirit serpent with base power and toughness 5/5. Most likely going to use on your creatures, but there is a chance it could be more useful on your opponents. Scattered Thoughts. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of those cards into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Yeah. Daybreak Combatants. When Daybreak Combatants enter the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn. I mean, could cast on them. They could become a 4/2 haste. Honestly, it's a bad card. Now our rare is Dorothea, Vengeful Victim. 1 blue and 1 white. Flying. When Dorothea, Vengeful Victim, attacks or blocks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. Okay. And it has a disturb cost of 1 blue, 1 white, and 1 colorless, so it can come back from your graveyard to become an enchantment aura on a creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, create a 4/4 white spirit creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice that token at the end of combat. So it just keeps making Dorotheas, which is also good if you have cards that generate value when creatures come into play as well, because that just means every time you're getting in, you're also getting in with your 4/4 white spirit and creating a creature. So, not bad. Especially for 2 mana. And 3 for the disturb. Last pack of Crimson Vow. Wild card uncommon, always nice. Lunar Rejection. Return target wolf or werewolf creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Or for 4 mana, just target creature. And blue. I was like, well, you can use it on your own stuff, but I don't know many people playing blue wolves. They're red and green usually. The Vampire's Kiss. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Create 2 blood tokens. Apparently we might have to make a blood token-y deck. Daybreak Combatants, we just saw them. Kessig Flamebringer. Breather. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Kessig Flame Breather deals 1 damage to each opponent. There you go. That is kind of like that werewolf, except for it's far more cost efficient to be put into an actual burn deck. The Persistent Specimen that keeps coming back. And an Honored Heirloom. Add 1 mana of any color, or exile target card from a graveyard. Okay. Not bad. And the rare is a red-white land. That comes into play tapped unless you control 2 or more lands. Not awful. Always have a place in like a red-white deck. So we're on to the Forgotten Realms again. And we got another uncommon. Intrepid Outlander. Whenever Intrepid Outlander attacks, if you attacked with creatures with total power 6 or greater this combat, venture into the dungeon. Fantastic. I will say, I will give you guys a hint for the next video. I have been kind of screwing around with a venture into the dungeon deck. So, that may be coming soon. Power of Persuasion. Choose target creature an opponent controls, then roll a d20, return it to its owner's hand. Its owner puts it on top or the bottom of their library, or gain control of it till the end of your next turn. It's a sorcery, though. Ugh. Dragon's Fire, I believe we have a bunch of those. It's nice. Especially if you're playing a dragon deck. Charmed Sleep. It's just making a crash down. When Charmed Sleep enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. An enchanted creature does an untap during its controller's untap step. Baleful Beholder. Baleful Beholder enters the battlefield. Choose 1 anti-magic cone. Each opponent sacks an enchantment or the Fear Ray. All creatures you control gain menace till end of turn. That's kind of nice. And it's a 6/5 for 6, so that's pretty solid for a common. Shocking Grasp. Target creature gets -2/-0 till end of turn and draw a card. It's okay, because you get to draw a card that replaces itself. As long as Dwarfold Champion is equipped, it gets +0/+2. But not for each time it's equipped, so just no matter how much equipment you have on it, it'll just get the +0/+2. Let's see what the rare is. Ocker Jelly. A 0/0 ooze that costs 1 green and X. Trample Ocker Jelly enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, and it splits. When it dies, if it had 2 or more 1/1 counters on it, create a token that's a copy of it at the beginning of the next end step. The token enters the battlefield with half that many 1/1 counters on it, rounded down. So it just keeps becoming smaller and smaller, but it can persist around for a little bit. Not bad. Let's see what else we got. You meet in a tavern. You can form a party. The top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of the creature cards from among them and put them into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, or start a brawl. Creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. Get some magic missiles, which can't be countered. You get an owlbear. It does owlbear things. Kick in the door. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. That creature gains haste until end of turn and can't be blocked by walls this turn. Venture into the dungeon. Yonti Fang Blade. When it deals damage, combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon. That may be one of the staple cards in our venturing into the dungeon deck. Jaded Sellsword. When Jaded Sellsword enters the battlefield, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, it gains first strike and haste until end of turn. It's okay. Sepulchre Ghoul. Man, I cannot talk today. Sacrifice another creature, and it gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Activate only once each turn. It's not even a 2/2 for 2. It's got an average ability. We got a long rest. 3 green and X. Return X target cards with different mana values from your graveyard to your hand. If 8 or more cards were returned to your hand this way, your life total becomes equal to your starting life total. Exile long rest. Interesting. Do you like how they have a candle on the tiefling's foot? Not a bad pack. So we have an Iron Golem. Iron Golem attacks or blocks each combat if able, and it does have vigilance. So it can do both. Eccentric Apprentice. When it enters the battlefield, venture into the dungeon. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've completed a dungeon, up to 1 target creature becomes a bird with base power and toughness 1/1 and flying until end of turn. Interesting. We got a common wild card. Fantastic. The Dwarf Old Champion. Boots of Speed. That's new. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has haste. Costs 1 to play and 1 to equip. It's not bad. It's not bad. Clever Conjurer. Mage Hand. Tap to untap target permanent not named Clever Conjurer. Activate only as a sorcery. They try to be careful with things that untap other permanents. Devoted Paladin, Beacon of Hope. When Devoted Paladin enters the battlefield, creatures you control will get +1/+1 and gain vigilance till end of turn. It's okay. If you're playing a deck that has a whole bunch of small creatures, it gets really nice. And we have the Dancing Sword. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. And when the equipped creature dies, you may have Dancing Sword become a 2/1 construct artifact creature with flying and ward. If you do so, it isn't an equipment anymore. Fair enough. I don't know if that's technically rare worthy to me, but sure. Got another. We got a rare wild card and an uncommon. You meet in a tavern again. The Half Elf Monk. We got Vigilance and Stunning Strike, 1 colorless and 1 white to tap target creature. Yeah, that's pretty expensive nowadays, although it does have Vigilance, so you can kind of get in and then tap on their turn. Usually use it to make it so players can't attack with their most powerful creature during their turn. You tap their creature, but you can't use it to remove a blocker. Potion of Healing. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you can sacrifice it and you gain 3 life. Fair enough. Gnoll Hunter. Whenever he attacks, if you attacked with creatures with total power 6 or greater this combat, put a 1/1 counter on him. It's pretty nice. Arcane Investigator. Search the room, roll a d20. So you can just use his ability over and over again. Draw a card, or look at the top 3 cards of your library and put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. If it wasn't so costly, it wouldn't be too terrible in our dice rolling deck. Price of Loyalty. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. If mana from treasure was spent to cast that spell, that creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn. And our rare is Morton Kanan. I believe we opened him already, but you can always use up to 4. Draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand onto the bottom of your library. Drawing cards is always nice. Create a blue dog illusion creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to twice the number of cards in your hand. And 10. Exchange your hand and your library, then shuffle. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. It's all about drawing them cards. 2 to go. We have an Ingenious Smith, Human Artificer. When Ingenious Smith enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever 1 or more artifacts enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Ingenious Smith. This ability triggers only once each turn. Not bad if you're making a equipment deck, because equipments, as you can see over here with the Dueling Rapier, are in fact artifacts. So that's pretty sweet. We got a blue dragon who busts out his lightning breath, giving a one creature -3/-0, one creature -2/-0, and one other creature -1/-0. They all have to be other creatures. You can't just give one creature -6/-0, but it's not awful. Got the Grim Bounty. Destroy target creature Planeswalker and create a treasure token. It's a sorcery, so all honesty, kinda garbage. Deadly Dispute. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sack an artifact or a creature, draw 2 cards, and create a treasure token. Keep in mind that the treasure token itself is an artifact, so if you keep on, you can cycle through your treasures to keep drawing cards. Which is a very nice common. The Dueling Rapier. We saw that a second ago, but one for essentially a 2/0 buff to your creature with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you attach it to a creature. That's pretty nice. Minimus Containment. Enchant non-land permanent. Enchanted permanent is a treasure artifact. With tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color, and it loses all other abilities. If it was a creature, it is no longer a creature. Good way to remove creatures or just any permanent, really. Like, you give them 1 land for 1 turn. And in exchange, they lose whatever their combo piece or best card on the table is. Clever Conjurer, the Mage Hand again. I like that he's literally like 3 inches from the gear, and using Mage Hand to stop. He's like, yeah, I could reach out and touch it, or... And don't any of you lie, we would all use that ability in the same way. We'd probably just be picking up like the remote off the floor. And our rare is Polo, a Guide to Monsters. Whenever you cast a creature spell that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, copy that spell. Copy of a creature spell becomes a token. I believe we opened him last time. And here we go, last pack. We've got the Power of Persuasion. We've had that. Hey, the Barbarian class, which we have played in our dice rolling deck. It's actually a very nice card. Faraday's Fireball. Deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and then roll a d20. Deals 2 damage to each player, or it deals 2 damage to each opponent. 5 mana. It's expensive damage. Sepulchral Gruul. Seen it. Swarming Goblins. Swarming Goblins enters the battlefield. Roll a d20. You can create up to 1, 2, or 3 extra goblins. It's really expensive. Price of Loyalty, gaining control of creatures. You find a cursed idol. You smash it to destroy target artifact. You lift the curse to destroy target enchantment, or steal its eyes. You create a treasure token and venture into the dungeon. And the final rare of the round is the Black Staff of Waterdeep. You may choose not to untap the Black Staff of Waterdeep during your untap step. Animate Walking Statue. 1 blue and 1 colorless to tap. Another target non-token artifact you control becomes a 4/4 artifact creature for as long as the Black Staff of Waterdeep remains tapped. Activate only as a sorcery. Not bad. Don't know if it's always going with our theme, but opening packs is always a good time. That, not adrenaline going, but the endorphin push. Get some extra wild cards for making fancy new decks to screw around with, or lose magnanimously with. But it was a good time. Had an enjoyable time opening these packs with you all, and I will see you all again in the next adventure, where we actually do something. Bye for now.